Contracts. You can think of an employment contract. You can think when you signed up for an email account or your Facebook account. All of these require you to agree to certain terms and conditions. How do we determine what you have agreed to?
What's written down on the piece of paper.
Precisely. So what's written down? Terms and conditions, someone said over here as well. You have to look at the terms of the agreement, and then you'll know what it is that you've assented to. If we have a situation where there is ambiguity, either we do not understand the exact terms in the contract, there is confusion, or the agreement is missing altogether, what we do is look at contemporaneous documents. Contemporaneous documents are documents that were made at roughly the same time by either the same parties or similar parties using the same language. Now, the terminology here that we have in the declaration is very important. We had a Maori version of this declaration, and we had an English version of this declaration. And one was understood to be a translation of the other. So if we look at the Declaration of Independence, Article 1, we see Rangatiratanga. And we understand this to mean, when we look at the English version, we understand this to mean independence. Article 2, Kingitanga. And Kingitanga, when we look at the English equivalent, is sovereign power and authority. Article 3, Kawanatanga. The English equivalent is functions of government. The Declaration of Independence indicates that the British Crown was recognizing the authority, the sovereignty of Maori. We have Maori as a people declaring their sovereignty. A few years later, just a few, we're talking 5 years later, the British sought a treaty agreement with Maori. So unlike the Declaration, with the treaty, there were 9 official English versions circulating. There is one document that is now deemed the official English treaty. And in fact, the official treaty. Unlike the Declaration, the English versions were not translation of the Maori version. These were written separately. Critical provisions that we have in the treaty relate very much to the critical provisions that we just saw in the Declaration. So if we look at the treaty, we see in the Maori version, tribes grant Kawanatanga, which, as we saw from the Declaration, meant functions of government. They grant functions of government to the Queen. In the English version, which is the official treaty, the tribes cede absolute sovereignty to the Queen. Now, going back to the Declaration, Kawanatanga is functions of government. Sovereignty is Kingitanga. So there's a disconnect between the two versions. Rangatiratanga is independence. Kingitanga is sovereignty. And neither of those are being granted or being ceded in the Maori version. In Article 2, the Crown is confirming Tino Rangatiratanga, independence, independent control over a variety of things, including, most importantly, resources. In the English version, Queen guarantees undisturbed possession of land. First, an obvious difference, land versus resources. Land is one thing, what's under the land, over the land, in the waters is something else. Second difference, independent control versus possession. Now possession, we know, does not include the right to regulate. The owner regulates. The possessor makes use of the rights that have been granted by the owner. We have a qualification though, undisturbed possession. So undisturbed possession seems to be a little bit higher than simple possession. But how high remains unclear. And then we go to Article 4, what's referred to in your materials as the protocol. What we have is the governor agreeing to respect all faiths, spirituality, but also agreeing to respect Maori custom, ergo Maori law. Now the core dispute is between Article 1 and Article 2. The most reasonable reading of the Maori text, if we look at the Maori text, we see that Article 2, the rights that are granted, Article 2 supersede the rights that are granted in Article 1. It's very straightforward. We look at Article 2 and we see that the Crown is confirming Tino Rangatiratanga independence, Maori's independence. And in the first article, Maori are granting functions of government to the Queen. When we look at the English version, we see that Article 1 supersedes Article 2. So here we have Maori ceding absolute sovereignty to the British. And in Article 2, what the British are in exchange guaranteeing is undisturbed possession of the land. And the courts, until this day, have been unable to resolve the dispute. So instead, the courts have in fact moved away from the terms of the treaty. What you'll be looking at are the principles of the treaty. Here's the question for you, the million-dollar question. Why have the courts had so much difficulty? Which text should they rely on? We have a Waitangi tribunal that has confirmed that the Maori version differs from the English version. The Maori believed they were forming an alliance with the Queen. Maori believed, once again, this is the Waitangi tribunal findings, Maori and governor would be equal in power, equal in authority. What this means is that according to the Waitangi tribunal, Maori understood that they were signing the Maori version and that they were going to maintain Tino Rangatiratanga and that they were granting Kawanatanga. The British, according to the Waitangi tribunal again, had a different understanding. The British assumed that Maori understood that they were going to preserve, maintain possession of the land on authority of the Queen. The British also assumed that all lands that were not in direct possession of Maori would belong to the Crown. Well, this is where we look to the Waitangi tribunal. The tribunal says there was no deceit involved. It's a miscommunication. Oops. There are implications if we accept either version. significant implications. If you accept the Maori version, and you accept that Maori have sovereignty over Aotearoa. Critical question that you'll have to consider throughout this course. Is the treaty a source of New Zealand law? Write that down. Before 1975, the answer was a categorical no. Since 1975, this is no longer clear, no longer certain.
Tamariki o ngā whetū,